How many of you have seen this prompt online before? Okay, almost everyone. And do you know what it's called? What? It's called a CAPTCHA. And it stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to Tell Computers and Humans Apart. You might remember that they used to look like distorted numbers and letters that you had to decipher, but now it's as simple as clicking a box that says, "I am not a robot." A CAPTCHA serves as a digital gatekeeper, making sure that we as humans can prove our identity in the vast expanse of the internet. Now you might be wondering why a robot can't click this box, right? Well, they can, but the click itself isn't the test. The real test comes before the click in the way that your mouse moves towards the box. You see, your computer tracks this movement. A cursor that is controlled by a robot moves in a suspiciously straight line at a consistent speed, whereas your mouse movements are naturally erratic and human-like. So human error, such as slight deviation in your mouse movement, is actually a good thing in this context because it proves that you are a human and not a robot, because these imperfections are hard for bots to replicate. So if you think about it, right, this simple task of clicking this checkbox actually dives deeper into the very essence of our existence. But as AI continues to advance, simply clicking a checkbox may not be enough to prove our humanity. We may have to rely on other things. So a CAPTCHA may ask humans to do things it knows for sure only humans can do. It may ask us to create art or write poetry. But one could argue that artificial applications can now rival or even surpass human thinking in these areas, right? So as we enter a world where machines and artificial entities can think better and act quicker than humans and their institutions, we probably have to rely on other tasks, on deeper human traits like empathy, common sense, and even humor. But yet, even these unique human qualities may not be safe from the reach of AI in the long run. In the middle of the 20th century, computer scientists were inspired by the inner workings of the human brain and created what they called the first thinking machines. And these models served as the foundations for what we know today as artificial intelligence. But it wasn't until last year that many of us truly awoke to the promises and dangers of AI when OpenAI released ChatGPT. Now, I'm sure everyone here knows what ChatGPT is, right? It's an application that enables us to converse with the computer in a singularly human way. But AI itself has been a routine part of our lives for many years now. It's been powering Google's search engine, Amazon's recommendation, and Facebook's facial recognition technology. It is how post offices decipher handwriting and banks read checks. But all of these AI applications work in the background, often in a scripted and structured way. ChatGPT, on the other hand, is exciting. It's responsive and it's unpredictable. So when we ask for its assistance, prompting it with queries that we need help with, it often generates things that never existed before. ChatGPT's answers are delivered in plain, unmistakably human language. And it's as if the God in the machine had finally been made in our image. As someone who has the privilege of working in this field, I have to say that I am deeply impressed by generative AI, and I won't deny that I practically hold vigils to await an even deeper level of intelligence. I think it's incredible that a little bit of linear algebra and billions of dollars of data acquisition can actually allow us to talk to a computer. But sometimes I feel like the term artificial intelligence is a bit misleading, maybe even a little bit dangerous. Because when we say artificial intelligence, it makes it feel like we're building new creatures rather than new tools. And this is further perpetuated by the use of biological terms like neurons and neural networks, thinking and generating when we're talking about the development of AI. You see, we are at the beginning of a new technological era, and the easiest way to mismanage a technology is by misunderstanding it. The term intelligence is almost always used with a positive connotation. But it's important to note that it is a completely value-neutral term. It is simply the ability to accomplish complex goals, regardless of what those goals are. So, for example, you can be intelligent and kind or intelligent and cruel. And intelligence is the goal that is used for making scientific discoveries, creating beautiful art, and even planning terrorist attacks. Humans are considered intelligent because of our ability to reason, reflect, and adapt. Our moral sense of judgment is rich and subtle, emerging over the many years of learning from our experiences. Machines, on the other hand, are considered intelligent because of their ability to process vast amounts of data, recognize pattern, and perform tasks with accuracy and efficiency. So let's compare ourselves to computers for a second, okay? All the knowledge that you have has been programmed into your brain. Everything from your ability to recognize your friends, read, write, walk, talk, sing, and tell a joke has been embedded into you through a process we call learning. The same is true for machines. A machine can learn whatever it wants so long as it has access to the data. But while it takes you and me years to learn how to read and write, a machine can do that in a couple of hours. For machines, the data is endlessly cycled over and over again until the information is being replicated. Some people believe that the singularity, the point in which human intelligence equals artificial intelligence, will be a pivotal moment in our future. But while it is still impossible for machines to have human-level intelligence, they're slowly starting to mimic it. Just take ChatGPT, for example. You may get tricked into thinking that the new AI models are actually rather than artificially intelligent, and that they understand the meaning and implication behind the content that they deliver. They do not. It's easy to attribute intelligence to the new systems because they have a kind of flexibility and unpredictability that we don't usually associate with technology platforms. So something like GPT-4, for example, is built on top of a large language model, which is trained on vast amounts of data. So the AI algorithms and the platforms that are dominant in the market today are essentially text prediction machines. What do I mean by this? When you enter a query consisting of certain words in a certain order, your query is correlated with what's inside the model. The model then generates a sentence based on words and phrases that typically belong together without ever relating to what those words and phrases mean in the real world. So language-based systems like chatbots are built using statistical approaches that give you the superficial appearance of understanding, whereas their linguistic abilities are still very limited. So this is triggering talk for a new age in technology, because what we're saying is that the most important thing that's driving this explosion in AI is actually data, or data inputs. And human developers are responsible for curating what the AI learns from, selecting the books, the websites, and the code repositories that build its knowledge base. So an AI's output is only as good as the data that it is trained on, which raises a very important question. Who is responsible for feeding this data into AI? What we have to remember is that even though it's called artificial intelligence, it is made by people, it is built by people, and it is deployed by people. Therefore, it matters who those people are and whether they're bringing a wide range of perspectives and experiences to their work. The AI systems we build today will inherently carry our biases in their algorithms because AI is driven by data, data comes from society, and society has its own built-in biases, right? So just think about the AI field today. The AI field today is dominated by a handful of white male technical experts working at a handful of elite institutions, all recruited from the same handful of elite universities. Now, if they're the ones teaching AI how to think and understand the world, the technology they create will reflect their blind spots and their biases, therefore making the technology less effective and our society less equal. This is why large language models that underlie platforms like ChatGPT often parrot values of societies that are Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. And relative to the rest of the world, these societies are more independent, more individualistic, and more impersonal. They are also less morally parochial, less respectful towards authorities, and less conforming. So the further one's values are from the West, the more misaligned our values will be from the large language models. Let's just take a look at this example for a second. Researchers use text prompts on an image-generating platform, and they asked the AI to generate images of beautiful women. And this was the image that was produced. Now, can anybody tell me if there's anything problematic about this image? Because at a superficial glance, the AI did exactly what it was supposed to do. These are all images of beautiful women. But upon closer inspection, right, we realize that what we are looking at is a monochromatic, monotonous slideshow of mainly Caucasian women. And beauty in this instance is defined narrowly using only Eurocentric features. Now, before we go and alert the woke Gen Z overlords and swear off of technology forever, let me make one thing absolutely clear. AI in its icy digital heart does not have an ounce of racism. It is, after all, like a parrot mimicking its surroundings. The AI learns from the data it is fed, and therein lies the problem. If the data that the AI is learning from is bias, the AI systems they'll mirror these biases and often amplify them. So something like ChatGPT does not know the difference between right or wrong, good or bad. ChatGPT's capacity for moral judgment, if we want to call it that, is built using its initial data set with reinforcement from its human coders. So if we want our AI systems to recognize and value all forms of beauty, we have to make sure that the data input used during the training and development process is also varied and diversified. Now you might be wondering, why does this matter to you? Somebody who is so far removed from Silicon Valley and has absolutely nothing to do with AI. Why does this matter to you? Well, it matters because as we transition into the world of tech, the same things that are being marginalized and ignored around our conversations of development are also being marginalized and ignored in the tech world. Just take this Twitter thread, for example. When asking ChatGPT if Palestine and Israel deserve justice, we are met with two very different and biased responses. Granted, this was an older version of GPT. AI threatens free expression by supercharging the dissemination of disinformation. It also has the ability to make people lose trust in technology altogether and therefore in one another. A lot of technologies take for granted that they work for everyone, whereas in reality, they just sort of ignore certain cultures and societies altogether. which can feel very dehumanizing. The gatekeepers of today's technology are unlikely to include the views of societies that are small, isolated, and remote, because amongst the things that makes us human are self-interest and a reluctance to abandon the views that we are familiar with. So in our quest to align machines with human values, our first challenge is deciding whose values we mean. I've said this earlier that AI learns from the data it is fed, but what if there isn't any data that represents you or the society that you grew up in? Let's imagine a hypothetical scenario for a second, okay? Let's imagine that researchers wake up tomorrow and decide that data points from countries with population less than 1 million are statistically insignificant. What then happens to you and me? What happens to our Bhutanese values, our stories, and our voices? What happens when our culture is erased from the medium through which the future generation will learn everything there is to know about the world? Our narratives risk being erased from large language models and consequently from the global consciousness. And while it will take many years for AI to be trained on a steady diet of unbiased data and transparent algorithms, we can at least make sure that we are part of the AI discourse. History has always been written by the victors, but now it is being written by people who create the tools of tomorrow. So the sooner we understand this, the sooner we can start managing this technology more intelligently. But here's the thing. Whenever I talk to people about AI, the first thing that they ask me is whether it's plausible for humans to one day be dominated and outsmarted by superintelligence. There is a real fear that human capability will be replaced by AI, or worse, that something like the Terminator will one day, on purpose or by accident, annihilate every single one of us on this planet. These pop culture references have become an almost religious mythology. I mean, it's no wonder that some of us long to experience a future like this, to realize a long-held dream. But making a myth of technology can only make it more likely that we fail to operate it well. And this kind of thinking limits our imagination, tying it to yesterday's dreams. The danger with the Terminator story is not that it will happen, but that it distracts us from the real risk presented by AI. The real risk is not that robots will come and take over the world, but that we will lose our identity in the process. So our challenge is to make sure we maintain our unique human qualities, and more specifically, our Bhutanese-ness in the face of advancing AI. I think there's no better place than a literature festival to emphasize the importance of sharing our personal and collective stories. It is up to us to represent and preserve our values and our aspirations authentically. If we relinquish this control, we risk allowing AI to define who we are and what we stand for. So what we can do in the meantime, in our own individual ways, is to engage with emerging AI technology so that we demystify it and that we gain firsthand experience about its capabilities, its limitations, and the impact that it will have on various aspects of our lives. And if we look at this data point, it would actually seem like we are doing that. I'm sure a lot of you would have seen this floating around social media a couple of months ago. This shows that Bhutan is actually leading in the adoption of AI, with a notable 15.9% of the population using it. Honestly, I had mixed feelings when I saw this, because on the one hand, it's a powerful technology and we should be using it and learning how to use it properly. We should be embracing Gen AI as a way to enhance and augment our creativity, streamline our workspaces, and learn new things. But then I get emails like this, which is how I'm going to assume the majority of us in the 15.9% are using the technology light. As you can see, this content was copied directly from ChatGPT, and the person didn't even bother formatting in the subject line or editing my name into it. This is the epitome of laziness. Okay. Okay. Last. Last. This is what we should not be doing, because this is the epitome of laziness. And it shows that we have stopped thinking for ourselves. People remain ignorant about the algorithms driving the platforms that they use and the provenance of their training data. Do you ever stop and wonder if you are somehow in breach of copyright, or if the information that you are reading is accurate or politically correct? AI is not perfect because the humans building them aren't either. For the first time in human history, this next generation is projected to be worse off than the current one. Part of the reason is because we have outsourced our thinking. And this poses the risk of diminishing our cognitive engagement, losing the ability to come up with new ideas and solutions to our problems. And if this current trend continues, we will soon reach a point where humans humbly wait for an algorithm to tell them what to do and how to think. What's even more worrying is that AI systems continuously recycle user data, proliferating and replicating information on a massive scale. AI is trained to standardize and enforce uniformity across the content that they deliver, which leads to a digital landscape cluttered with information that all read and sound the same. Nothing new is created because everything is being recycled from pre-existing data. This has turned our internet into a vast echo chamber. It's a classic case of garbage in, garbage out. When people think of ChatGPT and the other AI systems, they're often drawn to examples of school students using AI for writing. Right? People always ask, what will happen to the school system when students start doing this? But I think this kind of question misses the bigger picture. Forget about school essays for a second. Think about our policies, our political discourse, our news, our laws, our journalism. What will happen when our politicians and our lawmakers use AI to shape their platform and to draft legislation? What will happen when our political discourse is driven by algorithms rather than accountability? What will happen, or are we really willing to risk authentic human input and critical thinking in the most vital areas of our society? The risk is not just mediocrity, but a profound loss of originality and integrity in our democratic process, our governance, and our leadership. We have come to use ChatGPT as a one-stop shop for thinking. The general consensus is always, why bother searching for something? Or why read the news when I can just ask ChatGPT? Why engage with a designer or work with an artist when I can just ask ChatGPT? By focusing solely on prompting AI, there seems to be a critical oversight, the need to prompt ourselves, and the need to advance our own intelligence. Ever since ChatGPT's popularity exploded, my inner writer has been bursting at the seams. So I can only imagine what the writers and the artists in this room must be feeling. I'm sure you all have noticed that the art or the content that is produced by AI is often bland or vague. It's missing a humanistic core. It's missing an individual person's passion, pain, longing, and a life of deeply held personal experiences. It does not spring from a person's imagination. It does not burst of insight, of joy, of anxiety, anything that underlies any profound work of human creativity. So ironically, AI has made me believe in the concept of a human soul by showing me what art looks like without it. I think we stand at a critical juncture where we must guard against this complacency. There is a tendency to let AI handle even our simplest of tasks, like writing emails and making our shopping lists. If we let AI handle all of our practical needs and desires, we may soon find that we lack meaning and purpose, like well-kept zoo animals. If we cede control to a superintelligence on the premise of improving efficiency, it is unlikely to involve our humanity. So what we need to do instead is not only understand how AI works, but also be part of its creation. We should not write ourselves off the narrative just yet, especially not as a nation with unique values and perspectives. Bhutan has a voice that needs to be heard in the global conversation on AI, and it is up to us to make sure that it is. But in Bhutan, I feel like sometimes the worst kind of censorship is self-censorship. It is something that we have been made to believe is right. I think it has to do with the history of our country and the way in which our stories have been told. There is a sense in which even we as Bhutanese don't really feel like we are part of the same world as everyone else, the world that is taking part in the AI revolution. It's as if we're not seated at the table, but in the corner, so the rules are different for us. I disagree completely. We have this tendency to write ourselves off before trying something new. I've been a part of conversations where I've heard our own people say, "This is not us. This is not Bhutanese." But who is saying this? The same people who use American cell phones, drive Japanese cars, and dance in front of a Chinese app. If we really want to argue about what is Bhutanese, none of those things are either. We can't choose to live in the modern world and then hold on to something that's regressive because we think it benefits us. We can't pick and choose what works for us. We have to understand how the technology that engulfs our daily lives works. Part of the problem is that the rest of the world sees Bhutan as something to use, and sadly, many Bhutanese people agree. Every single one of us here has an idea of Bhutan, but the idea that something is not us because it's too technical or too abstruse to understand is just ridiculous. There is sometimes a bit too much moralizing around the idea that those who create and those who consume technology are two separate entities. Things don't always have to be mutually exclusive. We can be vast enough to have things inside of us that contradict one another. So for example, we can be champions of gross national happiness while having a flourishing economy. We can be open to new tech and innovation while preserving our culture and tradition. And we can be living outside of Bhutan while still being loyal and dedicated citizens of this country. Ideological purity is a dangerous thing, and it's becoming the lens through which many of us view the world. If we continue down this path, we will watch our admiration be eroded over the next few years. We will watch ourselves become irrelevant, and it will feel like a personal loss. I know AI can feel complicated and mysterious, but then again, if you're ignorant about the basic mechanics of the universe, so can gravity and the movement of planets. But just like how physics mapped out the forces that cause apples to fall and the sun to set, if you spend a little bit of time understanding the mechanics and the principles behind AI, it will reveal to you its vast potential. We are better off modernizing our laws before technology makes them obsolete. And we're better off living in a society where we try and fail and make mistakes rather than doing nothing and posing as being perfect. What we need more than robots and interstellar travel is meaning and identity. I don't think AI will take over us. Not in this generation, not in our lifetimes. But we are at the risk of becoming nostalgic for a time when intelligence had not yet become a product. A technology by itself is never enough. For it to be of use, it needs to be accompanied by other elements, such as popular understanding, good habits, and the acceptance of shared responsibility for its consequences. So simply using ChatGPT does not make you an AI expert, and it certainly does not make Bhutan a digital nation. We are better off educating our young. If students want to use AI for writing, they need to know what good writing is first, and that takes time and effort and a whole bunch of mistakes. We need to cultivate a generation that not only excels in harnessing AI, but also preserves the essential qualities that make us uniquely human. The human spirit is characterized by things like curiosity, imagination, and the pursuit of meaning. All of the attributes that are difficult for machines to replicate. Trust me, I've tried. I think the most powerful thing that AI can do is provoke us, to challenge our assumptions and to push us beyond our cognitive comfort zones. When AI prompts us, it can lead us to ask why and what if, the questions that lie at the heart of all creative pursuits. Honestly, I envision a world where AI becomes a ubiquitous ally in our quest for knowledge, where every single person has access to the tools that empowers them to think more deeply, plan more strategically, and to innovate more boldly. But simply building a successful product isn't enough. We need to ignite a national level conversation about the role of AI in our lives. We need to inspire the revival of human intelligence, where technology acts as a bridge to a more enlightened future. Just think about it for a second. Everything that we love about human civilization is a result of our own intelligence. So if we can amplify that using AI, it can only make our lives better. The strengths and weaknesses of AI do not mirror our own, and that is a good thing. We need to double down on those talents and skills that we know for sure only humans possess. And maybe, just maybe, the most important thing that AI can do is show us what it cannot do, and so reveals to us who we are and what we have to offer. Life is worth celebrating because it has turned our universe from an astronomical waste of space with no self-awareness into a living ecosystem harboring self-reflection, beauty, and hope. So the next time you're online and you come across the CAPTCHA, remember that life's meaning has everything to do with the depth of our identity. And although you will consistently forget that humans undergird this meaning, the secret is knowing that there is beauty in our imperfections. And that is what makes us human. Thank you so much for your time. Question? I think there's a few more minutes for questions, so if anybody has it. Yes?
So, do you believe that in order for general development to take place in a country, there always needs to be AI to develop fast? I mean, like, for general development of a country to take place, is it mandatory for AI to develop first?
Yes and no. I think, like I said, for us to be part of what's happening in the world right now, it is important for us to know what's happening not only in the AI space, but also in the tech world in general. And if we can use it somehow to enhance our efficiency, our creativity, there's always a plus point. I think a lot of people would mistake me for a technologist when I'm actually a humanist, which means that I would love to build technology that enhances people's lives. But if you think about AI, it's also fallen into disrepute. It's a byword for overpromising and underdelivering. So we have to make sure that if we embrace AI or technology, that we do it authentically. So that if you look in Bhutan, We can't just jump to like space travel and building rocket ships right now. We have to look at what problems AI can solve in our analog world right now, and so that it enhances the lives of people who live here right now without jumping too much ahead into the future. Any other questions? Yes, doctor.
Wonderful presentation. Sonam, can you hear me? Oh, okay. I just came back from Delhi, and then in Delhi now they have this AI health checkup. Yes, and they do it in about 1.5 hours, the whole scanning of the body. And then I realized in this part of the world and in this subcontinent, our people have a lot of paranoia with the doctors. They think that doctors tell lies or exaggerate or scare you. And I thought maybe the machines don't lie, and maybe they can trust them better. But now, with your talk, I realize what will be the role of the doctors if the AI is going to interpret everything? All these investigations, all the blood reports, what will be the role of the doctors? And I think that's where I think we have come of age. We have to seriously think about how do we train our doctors. And you know, in Bhutan, we have started our first batch of MBBS students. I wish they are here in this room. There are a lot of students, but I think this is what we seriously need to think about. What would be the doctor's role when AI is going to take over with all these data? Obviously, they are smarter than us. I mean, I can't remember many of the facts. So, yes.
Les, thank you for the question. Role-by-role basis. It will happen on a task-by-task basis. So AI is still at this stage that it is when it hasn't attained AGI, artificial general intelligence. It cannot cope with the messiness of this world. So we still need humans, doctors and nurses, with their contextual knowledge and nuanced understanding to come into the space so that they can interact and give that humanistic touch and knowledge and interaction that a lot of patients need. Because machines and AI always think in a linear fashion. So if we can make sure that 1 + 1 is always equal to 2, it is very easy for us to program that into the data. But if we want to make sure that we include empathy and if we include compassion, then it's a little bit more complicated than that, doctor. So I think at this point in time, a lot of the medical services and the medical uses of AI will be used as a way to assist doctors and health workers, but not as a way to replace them entirely. Do we have time for questions still? One more, okay. I think there's a student behind that was raising his hand.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, La.
Okay.
So, my question is related to something that I think most of us were pondering upon when we were listening to your your presentation, La. And that question is regarding the privacy. Like, privacy has been considered as one of the most important aspects and a right of every human being.
Correct.
So, like, if we are to participate in this platform and provide data so that our country can be recognized and our own culture can be protected and preserved, how can we do it without giving up on our human individuality and our rights to have privacy? That's my question, La.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think this is one of the biggest challenges that we're tackling in the AI space right now. If you look at OpenAI and what they're doing with ChatGPT, the inside joke is that they should be calling themselves closed AI because they don't share their information, or they don't tell us how they protect, preserve, or even how liberal they are with people's privacy and data. I think when it comes to technology, a little bit of data privacy is always compromised. That's not to say that it's going to be used in a way where it will display your private information online, but it's a way for people to recognize patterns. If 100 million people write in the same exact way or use a new exact slang, then AI has to learn from that. But it doesn't do it in a way that it will single you out. It'll do it in a way that it kind of puts you as a group, a cohort of sample studies to understand what new patterns and language or even like new ideas are coming up in the world. So at this point of time, I would say it's not being solved yet. It's something that we're trying to do in our companies as well, individually or by individual companies. What's happening right now is people are building their own servers, they're hosting their own data, but a lot of it is still being held in cloud services like AWS, AliExpress, AliCloud. So I would say it's like any other thing when it comes to innovation. I feel like you have to kind of experiment, and there will be errors, there will be some data that is compromised, but ultimately I would say nothing that would be too damaging. So I hope that answers your question. One more? Okay, you, yes.
Good afternoon. My question to you was, as you said, that AI does not have the artificial general intelligence, and it is getting built up on a large scale. So what can a country do to stop the unemployment which AI is going to do in the future?
Okay, thank you for that question. Artificial general intelligence, people have mixed feelings and opinions about this. Some people believe it will come tomorrow. Others believe that it won't happen in our lifetimes, like myself, because there's still a lot of work that needs to be done with just categorizing information. AI, in a lot of sense, is pattern recognition and making sure that our algorithms can do exactly what we tell it to do. So it's not in a space right now where it can go on and be conscious on itself. There is some aspect of it, like there's supervised learning and unsupervised learning that has had tremendous development in just this year, but is still not at the level where it can be a sentient being on its own and take over the world. So that's not going to happen right now. But in terms of employment, it's kind of the same as what I was saying with regards to the healthcare question. I don't think AI will come and necessarily take over everyone's job at once. The jobs that are at risk are the ones that use a lot more linear thinking. So in the past, we always thought that people who did manual labor's jobs would be taken. But the trend is quite the opposite. It's programmers, it's data scientists, it's graphic designers, all of the jobs where you know that there is a certain level of linear thinking that's being compromised and that's being put at risk. So, and even if that happens, it's not going to be dramatic and happen overnight. It's going to happen task by task,